Today's world, we get a lot of requests for any number of degrees of universal design and accessibility. When a client comes to us and they ask about handicap accessibility, we try to ask them questions about what their needs are. For many people, it's just a matter of making the doorways a little wider, making the bathrooms a little larger so they can spin a wheelchair around. That's what a lot of people mean when they say accessibility. But then, for other folks, it can mean a whole different set of needs. And we've gone all the way from just making those doors a little wider and making the bathrooms a little bigger and the hallways a little wider, all the way up to full ADA handicap accessibility, which has included elevators, kitchen cabinetry layouts that allow a person in a wheelchair to come up and actually wash dishes at the sink, zero threshold showers so that they can wheel a wheelchair into the shower, and zero threshold entryways so that they can get in and out of the house and into wheelchair vans. So there's really a broad spectrum of what could be called accessibility. We always start it by, like I said, interviewing the client and trying to determine what their needs are. As far as cost goes, the cost of a 36-inch door versus a 26 or a 2'6" is really not that much difference. So sometimes just making the doors a little larger and the hallways a little wider might not add any cost. And then it can go all the way up to, say, a $30,000 elevator. So there's a broad spectrum of what those costs could be. Here at one of our custom homes that we built, and this is not a handicap accessible house, but I wanted to explain to you one of the big things that we do for handicapped persons is create a easy entrance to the home. So this house here has our typical 2 steps up to the porch, and then what we would do is we would raise this sidewalk up and shelf everything so that the sidewalk came right up, and then we would raise this porch up so it's even with the bottom of that door, and someone would be able to then wheelchair themselves straight in, and we would replace this door with a zero lift threshold, so it's nice and flat, and then that handicapped individual could, without assistance, go from the outside of the home all the way inside the house, and they could even use the porch very easily if they wanted to. So at the upper end of the expense category of making a home handicap accessible would be an elevator. We've done a number of them over the years, and as you can see, the staircase here, very difficult for a disabled person to navigate. The big issue with the elevators, we have to create space in the floor plan for the elevator shaft. Usually that's typically a 5x5 or a 6x6 foot space in the floor plan. We do that during the design phase. And sometimes, if someone were to know that they want to live in that home throughout their life cycle, we may actually create the elevator shaft but not put the elevator in, so that way later on, as they aged, they could install the elevator, and we call that aging in place. So this is an example of a typical hallway in a home. Pretty tight for a handicapped individual to navigate and be able to push the wheels on the wheelchair. So if this were an ADA home, we would widen this by about 6 inches. That way they could easily navigate the hallways. Another important feature of any handicapped home is we would have all hard surface flooring in the house. So when we're doing universal design, you wouldn't have carpet. You would have all hard surface, whether it be tile, hardwood, or some sort of vinyl flooring. So I'm here in the kitchen and talking about universal design and accessibility. This is a great example. This pantry door is way too narrow for a wheelchair to navigate. So we would modify this floor plan, making this doorway wider so that a wheelchair could easily navigate that opening. Also in this kitchen, we have a double wall oven situation here. These are very difficult for a challenged individual because they open out. But believe it or not, they do make other units that open on a hinge this way, so a disabled individual could more easily operate the ovens. Also in the kitchen, if we were doing this kitchen for accessibility, they actually make a different sink where the cabinet is open below the sink. We lower these countertops down 6 inches, and the wheelchair would be able to go right up to the sink so that they could wash their hands and do dishes. So one of the big things we're trying to find out is what that individual's needs are. Do they want to just be able to move around the home, or do they want to be able to cook and operate as if they weren't disabled?